Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Great to have you in the conversation today. I was starting in the first segment to set up this next soundbite. It has to do with the White House tours. As you are aware, a very high-profile case. These White House tours were canceled. Now, this has completely backfired on the Obama administration. It's backfired on Barack Obama. That's why they're scrambling to find a way to finesse this thing now. They're trying to dig themselves out from under this. Because what President Obama, what his administration has done with these sequester, the impact of the sequester, remember, they're not cuts. They're a reduction in the rate of growth. The federal government, even with the sequester, is going to spend more money this year than it spent last year. The government is going to grow. It is going to spend more money than it spent last year. You know, and it's a good question. Well, if you're spending more money this year than you did last year, why do you have to make all of these draconian cuts, to use the word of the media? Well, you don't. The reality is that you don't. And even the legislation itself gives the Obama administration plenty of latitude in terms of where to make these adjustments. So all of this is completely unnecessary. You know, and we had that guy, he was in fisheries, I think, some fish department, and he was in contact with somebody in the Obama administration. Hey, look, I've got to make these adjustments. I'd like to do it in a way that is as painless as possible for the people I'm here to serve. And the Obama administration wrote him back and said, no, we want you to make these cuts hurt. We want you to administer this in a way that does the maximum damage to the American people, inflicts the maximum inconvenience on them, and the maximum pain. In other words, it's just all a political stunt for Barack Obama. He's just constantly campaigning. You know, we've talked about this before. Nothing is ever Obama's fault. He never accepts responsibility for anything. It's always somebody else's fault. And by the way, I'm going to make a prediction here. This is the first person I've ever heard say this. But I believe you are going to start hearing, and remember where you heard it first, I believe you are going to start hearing President Obama blame Congress for all of the problems with Obamacare. I mean, it's starting to be a huge, huge problem. Young people are getting ready to see a spike in their health premiums, anywhere from 157% to 190%. They have absolutely no idea that it's coming down the pike. It's going to cost more to go to the vet because of Obamacare. The initial application just to see if you can even get a health insurance plan, it's 15 pages and 21 separate steps. And once you fill that thing out, you haven't even got an insurance plan. All you've done is qualify to go pick an insurance plan. People are going to look at that and say, what is up with this? I thought all this was going to be free. I thought all this was going to be taken care of. What's all this business about these forms? 15 pages, 21 steps? I didn't sign up for this. I didn't vote for this. So I think you're going to hear President Obama start blaming Congress. He's going to start blaming Congress. You know, I made a mistake back there putting Obamacare together. I let Congress handle this. I trusted them. I trusted my colleagues in the Congress to do the right thing, and bless their hearts, they tried. They did their best. But, you know, they just kind of glitched up, and they made some mistakes. And, you know, in retrospect, I really should have gotten more involved in that process because I'm smart enough. I could have helped them avoid all these mistakes. That's what you're going to start hearing because these problems are only going to get worse. They're not going to go away. So President Obama is going to start trying to lay the blame off on Congress. And he'll wring his hands and regret that he wasn't a little bit more involved. And that just shows you what happens when you trust people. I was counting on them to do the right thing, and I was trusting them because I think that's what a responsible leader does. You hand off a responsibility and you trust them to go out and get the job done. Well, and then Obama's going to start talking about the fact that they kind of botched this thing up. And so now he's going to present himself as the guy that's the savior. He's going to come in and he's going to clean up the mess that Congress made passing his own bill. Well, here's President Obama talking to George Stephanopoulos about these White House tours. And again, we just saw the deal. I told you about the former FBI agent, the former Secret Service agent, says there's no way this wasn't the call of the White House. There's no possible way. We work for him. He doesn't work for us. So, but here's what President Obama said to George Stephanopoulos 2 nights ago when he was talking about these White House tours.
Your Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, told Capitol Hill today that for the first time that North Korean nuclear weapons and missiles pose a serious threat to the United States. So can North Korea now make good on its threat to hit the United States?
They probably can't, but we don't like margin of error, right? And when it comes to
it's that close?
Well, and I don't think it's not that close. Now, what we've done is we've made sure that we've got defensive measures to prevent any attacks on the homeland, and we're not anticipating any of that.
Let me stay in the region because James Clapper also today talked about cyber attacks. Put that at the top of his list of threats to the United States. A couple of weeks ago, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, said that we are at war with China because of their cyber espionage. They're winning that war, and their government and military is behind it. Do you believe that?
That doesn't sound like the clip I was looking for. I think maybe we got that clip a little bit mislabeled. But in the clip that we had lined up, President Obama says this to George Stephanopoulos: "You know, I have to say this was not a decision that went up to the White House." That's what President Obama tells George Stephanopoulos. This was not a decision that went up to the White House. Well, apparently Jay Carney didn't get the memo. Let's go back to clip number 2. Apparently, Jay Carney didn't get the memo because he accepts responsibility. Says, we at the White House, we were the ones that called off the jam on these tours. Let's listen.
Can you explain the contradiction between you and the president and your statements on whether the White House made the call to cancel the tours?
Nedra, the fact of the matter is that the White House runs the tours. The tours are of the White House. It was our job then to cancel the tours. The Secret Service cannot because those are White House tours.
You said this was not a decision made by the White House. You just said it was.
Well, Ed, I think I just answered that question and said that the Secret Service made the decision about its budget and to withdraw personnel from tours.
Right. And then you said it was
we had to cancel the tours. It's our job to cancel the tours. They cannot cancel them. So because this is not a tour of the Secret Service building. It's a tour of the White House and the grounds, and we run the tours and the invitations and that process. So the White House, as we have said, canceled the tour.
The White House, we canceled the tours. We had to cancel the tours. It's our job to cancel the tours. So President Obama's out there saying, oh, no, it's the Secret Service. And basically what he's doing is trying to blame the Republicans, those wascally Republicans, because of the sequester, which was his own idea. So this whole business, if you got to furlough Secret Service because to deal with these White House tours, then that's Obama's fault because the sequester, as Bob Woodward has made clear, was his idea. But he's trying to lay this off on the Republicans. Hang on a second, got to plug myself in. I keep doing that. I am back. So President Obama, again, trying to lay everything off on the Republicans, but this is obviously blowing up on him because sixth graders in Iowa, they're complaining about not getting to take their White House tour. They plan their spring break around this. You got people planning their vacations around this. You got to make arrangements through a congressional office to get one of these tours. So you just can't show up and say, I'm going to take a White House tour. This takes planning. People have been planning to go to D.C. So everybody knows that this is the White House is doing. President Obama trying to slough it off on the Secret Service, but everybody knows. They know who to blame. It's not the Republicans. They know that President Obama made the decision to pull the plug, and so Obama now trying to figure out how to get out from under. Now, in clip number 3, the next clip, Rob, this is President Obama talking about the budget crisis and coming up with a budget for the next 10 years. And I want you to listen to what Obama does in this deal. He is trying to get out from under this thing, too. You know, what he says in this clip is at some point I have to take myself out of this talking about crafting a budget. I got to take myself out of this. I got to let the Democrats and the Republicans work this out between them. That's Obama's way of saying, look, I'm not going to get my fingerprints anywhere on this budget. That way, no matter who comes up with it, I can blame them both. Let's listen.
At some point, I think I take myself out of this. Right now, what I'm trying to do is create an atmosphere where Democrats and Republicans can go ahead, get together, and try to get something done. But ultimately, it may be that the differences are just too wide. If their position is we can't do any revenue, or we can only do revenue if we gut Medicare or gut Social Security or gut Medicaid, if that's the position, then we're probably not going to be able to get a deal.
And John Boehner's already told Barack Obama, no more revenue, no more tax increases. We're done with that. We gave you $620 billion. That's all you're getting. And so Barack Obama now trying to lay that off on the Republicans, They've already given him $620 billion in tax increases, and now he's trying to blame them for not coughing up even more, not digging their hands even deeper into the wallets of the American people. And then he says, look, we don't even have a crisis right now. We don't have an immediate crisis in terms of debt. We're fine. We're fine for another 10 years. Nobody has to wring their hands over this, even though we're over 100% of GDP. No worries here. Nancy Pelosi out there this morning saying, hey, it may take us decades to balance the budget. That's fine. We have decades. Now, we're looking here at $16 trillion of debt. This is clip 4. This is President Obama back on the campaign trail in 2008. Let's listen.
The problem is that the way Bush has done it over the last 8 years is to take out a credit card from the Bank of China in the name of our children, driving up our national debt from $5 trillion for the first 42 presidents. Number 43 added $4 trillion by his lonesome, so that we now have over $9 trillion of debt that we are going to have to pay back. $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
Well, thanks to Barack Obama, it's no longer $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That number is now up to $52,000 for every man, woman, and child under his watch. And I agree, that's irresponsible, Mr. President. That is unpatriotic. Now let's grab clip 5 real quick. This is brief enough. I think we can wedge it in. Paul Ryan has come up with a budget, and it'll balance the budget in 10 years. Here's what Representative Jan Schakowsky from Illinois says about Paul Ryan's budget.
Well, it's completely dead on arrival in the Senate. This is absolutely going nowhere. And in fact, I thought with Chris Wallace that Paul Ryan admitted that this was really just a statement of their philosophy. And what a mean-spirited philosophy it really is.
So that's Jan Schakowsky talking about the Paul Ryan budget. And by the way, the Paul Ryan budget does not, in fact, keep the Obamacare tax cuts. A lot of people saying that was a problem with it, that are tax hikes. It kept the Obamacare tax hikes. It turns out that is not true. Now, his budget balances in 10 years without any tax increases. The Democrats submitted a budget. It raises spending 62% over the next 10 years and raises taxes by $1 trillion. I'm going with Ryan's plan. Back in 2.